My name is Max Banfield. Welcome to this YouTube video where I'll give a brief description of how and why I invented the world's first standing computer desk. I'll begin by presenting 3 pages for you to consider. Page 1 is about 1975. It's blank because there was no convincing scientific evidence of a physical cause for the health problems seen in desk workers. Page 2 shows some of my research from 1975 to 1980, when I made tens of thousands of detailed observations and was able to conclude by 1980 that sitting at a desk could be the cause of health problems. Then, from 1980 to 1998, when, after countless experiments in that and many other possibilities, I invented the world's first standing computer desk as a method of treating and preventing those problems. Page 3 shows some of the millions of standing desks which have been manufactured and sold on the basis of the health and productivity benefits since. I'll now begin by going back to 1963 when I had chest pains as a teenager. My doctors didn't and specialists didn't know the cause. And then, when I was about 21, I had aches and pains in my kidneys when I leaned towards the desk to count coins in the piles of 20. Then I'd get abdominal aches and later started getting breathless, faint and dizzy when I leaned towards the desk. Nothing was on x-rays, blood tests or CAT scans, so each time I consulted my doctor to ask him the cause, he'd shrug his shoulders, prescribe a different medication. I wanted to read medical books to find out what the mystery was and why doctors couldn't find the cause. But that meant sitting at a desk to read, so I didn't. A psychologist said that the pains had a psychological cause, not a physical one, but he couldn't provide me with any evidence for that. In the meantime, my symptoms had become worse, so I decided that I had to find the cause myself, despite the difficulties involved. I therefore purchased a small book called The A to Z of Health and began reading it at the rate of 1 word a day, or 365 words a year. I then went to the Adelaide University Medical Library and began reading research journals, which were full of jargon that I didn't understand. So I purchased a medical dictionary and began looking up the meaning of each word as I needed. I noticed that many words had 2 or more parts. E.g., thermometer is made from thermo for heat and meter to measure, to mean an instrument for measuring temperature. I then realised that if I learned 2 words per day, it would be 2 by 2 by 2 or thousands of words per year. My vocabulary went from 5,000 words to 40,000 in 5 years. Also, after 5 years of research, I came to the conclusion that leaning towards the desk was compressing my chest, lungs, abdomen to cause the chest pains, breathing problems and abdominal pains and kidney aches, etc. I wrote a summary in an essay called The Matter of Brainwork. It was published in the Australasian Nurses Journal in June 1980. I was walking through the Tea Tree Plaza when I saw an artist drawing portraits. So I asked him if he could draw my diagram more neatly. So he did. Also in 1980, I made some attempts at promoting that general idea, and this is an example which was also published in the Australasian Nurses Journal. I also sent another article to the Australian Medical Journal, but they replied in the standard polite manner and said they receive a lot of manuscripts each year, but can only publish a few, so they returned it with advice to try another journal. The reply from ABC Radio and others said that my posture therapy was too radical and controversial to discuss with the listening public. And it's typical of the type of response I got from other radio stations, TV stations and newspapers, and the media generally. This letter from the ABC shows those details. Some people argue that you can't get pain just sitting in a chair because you're not doing anything physical, like bricklayers or sportsmen, etc. 6 years later, I published a Word a Day calendar and sold it to newsagents and then to Rostrum, a public speakers organisation, in 1987. And they also used it as their Australian bicentennial product in 1988. In 1993, a doctor said there was something wrong with my blood test. And then my x-ray, CAT scan, bone marrow and biopsy. And then a specialist told me that I had cancer and only 2 months to live with no hope of a cure, and that I should rewrite my will. This is a copy of that scan. I had so many health problems that I didn't care, because the sooner I was dead, the better. And I decided to write a book called The Posture Theory and sell it to school and public libraries so that the next generation of children could grow up healthy instead of sick like me. And I began experimenting with pain because I'd soon be dead anyway. A page from a record of book sales to school and public libraries can be seen here. I spoke to many teachers and librarians who said a lot of children didn't sit up straight when asked. They suggested I have biographies of famous people to make them interested, so I did. I included one about the hunchback poet Alexander Pope, who wrote about his life as being one long disease with 1,000 aches and pains. I had already been experimenting by laying 6-inch high platforms on top of my desk and standing in front of it to write instead of sitting, and then I learned to type and then to use a computer. I was diagnosed with coronary artery disease in 1997 and then advised to have urgent cancer surgery to remove a 10-centimetre tumour from my neck, and then 6 months of chemotherapy, vomiting and fatigue followed. Then one day at 11 a.m, I noticed that I had been typing for 2 hours without pay. I'm going to be rich, I thought. I've invented the method which is going to help hundreds of millions of people prevent illness. It was the world's first standing computer desk. In order to protect my discovery, I waited until the next edition of my book and published it as the first diagram under copyright with all rights reserved in 1999. This series of books, from paperbacks to hardbacks, shows the progress of my experiments and diagrams between 1994 and 2000. The left diagrams in this illustration are from the 19th century theory of evolution, and the 8 on the right are from my book. I gradually sat up straight and then stood to write and type. The last diagram shows my final position standing in front of the computer. I then rushed off to the main radio stations, TV stations and newspapers, but they said that I needed the backing of large groups of people or experts before they could justify an interview or an article. I then asked the furniture companies in Adelaide if they would make standing computer desks in exchange for 5% royalty to me, so they could make profit from the remaining 95%. They said that none of their customers asked for standing desks. They just want to sit in comfortable chairs, not stand up and wear themselves out, etc. They didn't want to make them, but wished me luck with other companies, but nobody wanted to make them. In about 1998, Laurie Eddy was the vice president of the SA branch of the Australian Skeptics. He's a psychologist, and he did a review of my book. And it was published that year and later. And it states that my general concepts were almost totally rejected by modern medical authorities. It also states that there's virtually no modern research on that topic, as you can see here. I was then told to have urgent surgery to remove a large cancer that was blocking my left kidney, and then to have DHAP chemotherapy and then a stem cell transplant. 6 months of vomiting, 2 years of poor appetite and 4 years of weak immunity followed, and then eventually recovered. I stopped writing my book because nobody was interested in it, so I thought I was wasting my time trying to convince anybody of anything. And in that year, 2000, the Skeptics magazine published Laurie Eddy's review in which he was critical of my suggestions and regarded that, or reported that my ideas were wrong and the psychological theories were correct. "15 years later, in the period of 2 years between October the 4th, 2013 and February the 7th, 2015, I had more than 30 essays published in the British Medical Journal summarising some of my discoveries from my 40 years of research, including this one on the posture theory. However, nobody paid me or mentioned my name. The newspapers and TV programs were not telling the public about my major world first discoveries, so I stopped writing essays to prevent copyright thieves from having the opportunity to steal them by taking the credit for themselves. In October 2015, I saw this comment. "In the past 2 years, the great standing desk debate has led to a slew of articles about the hazards of sitting for too long. So the Executive Office of the President estimates that they will spend up to $700,000 for height-adjustable standing desktops and accessories." It was published in October the 8th, 2015. And that President Obama was joining the standing desk bandwagon. I also saw this article that year, a little earlier, in the Advertiser, the 2nd of June 2015. "Healthier, happy, more productive workers stand on their feet rather than sit down all day. Research shows." Now an international panel of experts has released the first specific advice for workers and their managers on how to get these benefits after reviewing all the research on the topic. And this, they said, presents a growing case for change. In the Sydney Morning Herald on October the 27th, 2015, the Prime Minister of Australia, Malcolm Turnbull, states he's included a standing desk in his new office to show his high regard for the latest and best in modern, creative, scientific innovation. Nobody was mentioning my name as the inventor in 1998. So I sent this essay about it to the British Medical Journal, and they published it on the 7th of February 2016. Also in 2016 or thereabouts, a furniture company claimed to be making billions of dollars in profit by selling standing desks to the top 400 companies on Fortune magazine's rich list, including Apple, Google and Facebook. In 2016, another furniture company claimed to be the world's leading authority on the new sit-stand desk revolution. Thousands of individuals and companies are taking out patents on their version of my standing computer desk design and claiming to be the inventor, the leaders, the first, the founder, the best, etc. However, the only thing they have produced is to include a height adjustable feature that makes the desk comply with my requirements depending on the height of the individual, and to allow for the alternation between sitting and standing. They make them with levers, wind-up mechanisms, pneumatics or push-button height adjustable features, treadmills and accessories. And office design layouts to allow for less sitting, more moving and more standing. Which is, of course, my theory. Other companies are listed on the stock market in the business of occupational health and safety consultation and education, making millions of dollars each year and paying profits to their shareholders. They say they got the idea from a genius, Leonardo da Vinci, and the great minds of history such as Winston Churchill, and from teams of international experts or surveys. They are shifting the narrative away from me by changing a few words, from the posture theory to sitting is a health hazard, from chest pains and breathlessness, abdominal pains, etc., to heart disease and cancer, from I invented the desk to Leonardo da Vinci invented it, from I designed the desk to furniture companies designed it, and from I did the research to a panel of international experts issued the first specific guidelines of sitting, standing and moving throughout the day. They are now advertising their standing desks, getting interviews and reports as experts on Adelaide radio and TV stations and newspapers. I was told that inventing something is the easy bit, so nobody has to pay me, because the large companies do all the hard work of making the desk and distributing them internationally to people who need them. I thought, try telling that story to pop singers, expecting them to give their songs away for free so that the record companies and distributors can make all the profit and give them nothing. Another said that I can't claim to be the first to invent the desk because nowadays there are thousands of scientists and many of them invent the same thing at the same time. Another said, so what, a desk is just a desk. Many people duplicate my diagrams more bluntly than others. Some are subtle about it, as you can see from the following diagram. In 2017, I saw this headline: Expert, market for healthy office seating will explode, with a related video. You can see the standing desk in the photo. (1975) to now. I did all the research and invented the desk which has brought on this standing desk design revolution. They should be called the Banfield desks. And those manufacturers and people related to that should be paying me license fees and a 5% royalty on each desk. If they wish to be referred to as the experts or authorities on the topic, they should get my official approval first. Thank you for listening. I'll draw a conclusion now by showing you again the three diagrams that I asked you to consider at the start. In 1975, there's nothing, a blank page. Between 1975 and 1998 was my thousands of experiments and research. And in 2017, millions of those desks are being made. Thank you.